For those who are unfamiliar, this is Destiny on the right. He's a streamer. He's got somewhere around 600K subbies. Dude on the left is a supposed and alleged legal expert, and they're about to talk about Andrew Tate's situation, being in jail the way he is. But they're actually about to have a debate with this woman right here and each other. This woman goes by Just Pearly Things. She calls herself Pearl, I guess. She is a femcel, an incel that's female, and she is absolutely nutty, dude. She believes all the same stuff Andrew Tate does, to a disturbing and weird degree. This is actually part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. This supposed legal expert is about to give us a brand new defense of Andrew Tate that he apparently thinks is going to win over the audience. He's another black person jailed for no reason. When he thinks it'll work to his advantage, he goes full-blown social justice warrior, even though he spent the last 6 months trashing the social justice movement. Let's give it a listen. And while we do, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII. It'll be something to watch in the background, right?
In the United States, you have much more black people, Hispanic people, 300% more, who have been incarcerated. So again, this is an example of another black man who's basically being incarcerated.
He's half black, that's true, but he's not black presenting, for lack of a better term, and which means basically he doesn't deal with the negative effects. He doesn't deal with like the systemic problems that come along with being black, or half black, I guess. So yeah, I mean, they can claim that he's black and dealing with this all they want, but it's just bullshit. He's not.
Sorry, you left. Do you not agree?
I don't know. I don't think this has anything to do with black men or what. Or whatever.
Well,
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. He's not dealing with the systemic problems that come along with that. He has suffered, to my knowledge, not at all. He hasn't suffered at all as a result of being black. This has nothing to do with anything.
Or that's being incarcerated. I don't know why that's even. I don't know why it even got brought up.
It does, because basically you're ignoring the fact that he's in Eastern Europe. It's basically has a significant amount of issues in terms of race issues.
It also has a significant amount of issues in terms of sex trafficking.
Yeah, well, it has. Well, and we will talk about that. But in terms,
isn't that what we're here to talk about? Like, why are we going to talk about it later? Let's talk about it, right?
Of the significant amount of race issues, significant amount of Islamophobia, you have a scenario where this country has not allowed any kind of dark immigrants into their country, but now they've changed that for Ukrainian immigrants and allowed.
Again, Romania is kind of a corrupt country, and it's not great. They're very far right conservative. I think they're Catholic, right? Conservative Catholic. What do you call it? Like conservative Catholic country. It's not fantastic. So, yeah, there are problems, and those problems are why Andrew Tate went there in the first place. He's not being mistreated. He's being treated completely fairly right now.
Significant amount in. You've got a significant amount of history of Islamophobia. So of course, when a black man who is a Muslim gets incarcerated immediately after he's converted to Islam, I think.
How long has the investigation been going on for? Since April, at least. Well,
they claim the investigation's been going on for April. We don't know exactly. It's going to be interesting to see when the.
He claimed that he's being discriminated against because he's Muslim. Give me a break, man. Really? Does anybody really believe this garbage? Sadly, tater tots believe it. Sadly, a disturbingly high percentage of people do.
Evidence comes out, but what we do know is he was
just curious, is there a single shred of evidence to point to anybody at any point of this process being either as racist or Islamophobic?
I've just explained to you examples of how Romania has demonstrated.
Okay, we're not talking about Romania. We're talking about the system. Is there evidence that Tate has been the victim of Islamophobia directly or indirectly? Either. I'll take either. I will take systemic Islamophobia even. There's no evidence of it at all. Eastern Orthodox, not Catholic. Okay, my mistake. 75% Eastern Orthodox. There you go. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. I thought it was Catholic, but yeah, Eastern Orthodox is that would make sense.
That. And also, I'm going to demonstrate to you throughout this process how, for example, people are not understanding that a lot of the comments he makes is based on his heritage, is based on his background and where he comes from. Something which I understand you may not understand based on your upbringing and you know, being a white man.
Sure. So let me ask that. Yeah, let me ask that one more time. Is there a single shred of evidence that anybody has participated in any Islamophobia or racism in regards to the Andrew Tate case?
Yeah. No. I've just given you an example of Romania having.
We're not talking about Romania. We're talking about Tate here.
A significant amount of racism. Well, I think it'd be harsh to call it racism, but it's a significant indicator if you're not letting people who are of dark color into your country.
Dude, suddenly these people turn into SJWs the moment that they think it could be useful to them. Suddenly they care about systemic injustices and racial bias in police forces and judicial systems. Suddenly they accept all of these problems and the existence of them and the fact that they're widespread across different countries and all that stuff. Suddenly they care. Up until 30 seconds ago, they were like, oh, systemic racism doesn't exist. It's not real. Be a man. Just, God, these people. They give up their principles at the drop of a hat, don't they? Again, if Tate has been victim of systemic or personal bias or injustices or whatever, that's wrong, and we should examine that closely. He just hasn't. It's made up.
But you're letting people of white color into your country. I think that says a lot.
Okay, so I'll ask a third time, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. You have no evidence of any Islamophobia or racism present in the Tate case,
I've just given you evidence.
You're telling me that the country as a whole maybe have had problems with racism, but in this particular case, I'm curious if there's any, like in the United...
Dude, Destiny is a master debater, okay? Really, he is. Again, he's got his problems. I just want to point out he has moved pretty far to the right, more far to the right than I'm comfortable with. He's way friendlier with some right-wing nutcases than I think is justifiable. And he's more specifically, look, I don't care who your friends are, but you platform far-right extremists and give their ideas validity entirely too often. Destiny does. I have a problem with that. But you've got to hand it to the guy. He knows how to debate. And he is on the left, for better or worse. He's just more to the right than I'm comfortable with is all. By the by, you don't have to battle this guy at all. You just have to stay alive. And eventually he kind of flies away. But if I could just steal... Oh, please don't go away. Please don't go away. I'm going to use Big Guard. I really want him to stick around so that I can steal this cursed ring because there are only there it is. Okay, wow. The last turn I got to steal it from him. There are only 2 of those in the game. Not that I need it, but it increases your damage dramatically. Anyway, let's keep listening.
States, if something happens and a cop was racist, we might look for like a statement that the cop has made. You wouldn't just say that like, wow, a black guy got arrested. That's racism, right? But you're saying that I'm not, because he got arrested, it's racism and Islamophobia. So I'm curious if there's any evidence of that whatsoever.
No. What I'm saying is when you look at the scenario, there is the significant issues when it comes to the fact that he is...
Again, so all the guy has done this entire time has talked about issues in Romania, not... issues that Andrew Tate has faced in Romania. He's faced 0 issues. Okay, he hasn't been treated unfairly. He hasn't been subjected to systemic or indirect or even direct Islamophobia or racism of any sort. He hasn't been victim of this law where you can be detained for 6 months without being charged because Tate is guilty, without a shadow of a doubt. By his own admission, he's guilty. He hasn't been victim of any of this stuff. Tate hasn't. He's just describing things that happen in Romania that should change. Agreed. Yes, we should change those things. Tate is not a victim here. He is literally the victimizer.
He is a black man and he is just converted to Islam and he's been incarcerated in an Eastern European country. To ignore that is ridiculous, and I'll explain why. Because again, this is a scenario where if you ignore the issues of race, if you ignore the issues of someone's heritage, which is happening a lot in this case, because I know, and we're going to talk about some of the videos that you're complaining about, then you can basically break it into the bare bones and look at literalism and convict anyone of anything. But it's illogical.
The hell does that mean?
You have to look at the background. You have to look at the history of the person.
Sure.
In reality, when you take all them things into consideration, they have a significant impact. Look, this is quite simple. Because you can give these examples, and obviously you have to generalize them. This is a scenario where, let's be clear, it's a person who's a black man who's being, again, accused of rape or human trafficking of essentially white women.
Again, he's trying to mix race into this whole thing when race has nothing to do with it. Most people don't even realize that he's half black. Most people think that he's from the Middle East or something, and that's perfectly normal in that area of the world that he lives in. He's honestly white passing. He looks like he's white. He looks like he's white and he just has a tan, basically.
And being incarcerated in an Eastern European country without enough evidence. I mean, that takes...
Well, that's bullshit. There is plenty of evidence.
Well, according to says you.
That takes me back to, for example, the United States in the when this type of things were happening in the plantation and KKK.
He is doing... See, what did I tell you? They will suddenly turn into SJWs the moment it's useful to them. They will light their principles on fire when it's convenient. Suddenly, they're all about systemic injustice and racial bias in the police force and privilege and all of this other stuff. They are all in for this stuff when it works to their benefit. But when... let me think about how to phrase this. But when the black community in America spends 200 years under the boot of oppression, they refuse to acknowledge it's even a problem. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? You're free. You have all the same freedoms and opportunities as everybody else. It's a culture problem, right? Isn't it a culture problem? What happened to all that?
Okay. So we've got Romanian judges, KKK, Andrew Tate, poor black man.
No, you can minimize it, but the issue is...
Well, not minimize it.
But let's talk about this. There's a significant...
Hold on, wait, you just said a whole thing. Well, just real quick,
Can I just make one point?
Well,
just
you
one
say like 7 points.
Because basically, you have a significant issue where black people are being accused of rape by white people, and it's happened significantly throughout the West. You've seen it now with Benjamin Mendy. You saw it with...
This isn't the West. Romania is not the West. That's why he went there. Romania, I think, is technically maybe part of the West. I'm not sure if it qualifies as a West or not, but he went there specifically because Romania is way, way lighter on this stuff. It's nearly impossible to get a conviction on this. That is word for word. He said this. I'm quoting him here, okay? He says he wanted to move to Romania because it's way harder to get a conviction if you... want to R-word somebody, basically.
Greenwood footballers who were accused, and now after losing so many years of their life, they've finally been let out. So to think that this is not happening subconsciously or consciously is an issue.
Okay, so just this is a personal feeling that I have. I think that when we pivot to other cases, I feel like it's because we know that this case is very weak.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. He's trying to appeal to other cases to point out that there is a problem in some judicial systems, in some court systems, instead of just appealing to this case. That's not what's happening here, and he knows that.
If you want to talk about racism that exists in the United States or racism that exists in particular cases, I'm free to do that at any point in time. But right now we're talking specifically about the Andrew Tate case. Andrew Tate is a man that has released an entire university guide on how to be a pimp, on how to seduce women and get them to work for you.
See, this is what Destiny's doing. Pay close attention. Like, look at how he's framing things right now. This guy keeps jumping all over the map, claiming that the Romanian judges are part of the KKK, and Tate is another black man being accused of something he didn't do, and he blah, blah, blah. Destiny is forcing him to zero in on this case, not letting him get away with this, not letting him reframe this in a propagandistic way. He's going to force the guy to focus in on this case and talk about this situation. This is one of the things that makes him a master debater. He does not let people get away with things like this. I feel like every time I compliment Destiny, I have to qualify it with he does have some right-wing views and attitudes, so just remember that.
and how to sex traffic, on how to scam them on taxes, on how to do all of these things. He's had charges in multiple countries relating to rape. He's had charges in Romania now relating to his entire business relating to sex trafficking. To try to handwave all of this and go Islamophobia and racism would be okay if we had even one iota of evidence, a statement that a prosecutor made, a statement that a judge has made, any type of evidence like this. But
even systemic bias. Show me anything about this.
Right now, we don't have any of that. So I can only go by what I've seen in front of me.
So then based on that, then you deny institutional racism, because you can never have a scenario where you can use specific evidence for generalization, but the whole...
No, you can show systemic racism, systemic bias. Show us how Andrew Tate has been the victim of this very specific thing. Show me that there are just as many white people that perpetrate human trafficking in Romania as there are black people, but there are 15 times more black people that are charged with it. And then I would consider it. Show me the statistics that prove that Andrew Tate is statistically being mistreated in Romania. Show me anything at all. He's got nothing. This is completely justified, what's happening to Tate right now. Completely justified.
Whole point is we use generalization to we show many examples to then say, look, this is a general issue. So that's
you
the
might
first
use
point.
generalization. If you want to talk about generalization, that's fine. But we use generalization to talk about general issues. We don't use generalization to talk about a particular issue.
You not at all. What happens is you use specific issues to create a generalization, and then said generalization is used for subsequent issues. That's actually how it works. In terms of coming back to the point, because you made quite a lot of points in terms of the allegations. Again,
dude, this guy's been talking for like 20 minutes. What's he talking about? He made a lot of claims about his allegations. What?
Because this is another problem what we have, and because we're on the race issue, let's talk about it. So you have a scenario where you've basically got a guy who comes from Luton, England, who's basically...
Since we're on the race issue, let's talk. Is that literally not what he's been doing this entire time? He brought the race issue up. Are you kidding me?
Got a background in... Look, he was basically, if you give an American comparable, he's basically from the ghetto. He has a scenario where people from that kind of upbringing are talking in very much slang, humor.
I don't think Tate was from the ghetto. He lived in the Chicago area. Didn't he grow up in like Gary, Indiana or something like that? And then when he was 14 or something, he moved to a tiny town in the UK. And then pretended to have an accent from 14 up.
Ghetto type talk. Oh, I'm a gangster. I'm a G. I did this. I did that. That girl. That. All that kind of stuff. So that's how they talk. Then to say, oh, guess what? He's talked like that. Therefore, he must have done these things. He's calling women like this. He's saying that he's done this. He said he's done fraud. All of these things are huge.
Okay, UK ghettos. He didn't grow up in a UK ghetto, but even if he had, UK ghettos are not the same as American ghettos. They're totally different. They're totally different worlds. And he's kind of portraying the UK ghetto that he's describing it, even though that's not what it was, as an American one.
Hugely problematic in the sense of you're basically removing his history and heritage. Now, I understand as a white man, you may not understand the background and heritage and these type of things that he's going through.
He wasn't raised by his dad or in that culture at all. He was raised by his white mother as a white kid with a tan.
But the issue is, that's quite important.
You can see Destiny laughing about it. It's ridiculous, dude.
Do you not agree?
No.
Why not?
Because me being white or black or whatever has nothing to do with him giving a detail. Now, I'm going to be honest, okay? Yeah. I've only been in London a few times, okay? Now, I haven't walked in some of the roughest parts, but maybe there are parts where you walk around and they're talking about how the top G's do tax fraud on their employees. Maybe that's just a way of speaking. But if it is a way of speaking and you detail it like to an incredible level, and you have a business where you claim to do that, and you put that out on videos on social media, and then you go to jail for it, yeah, you're probably going to get in trouble.
Exactly. That's the video that we watched at the very beginning. If you didn't see it, it's in part 1. I think this is probably part 2 by now. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's at the beginning of part 1. If you want to watch like everything that Tate said about it. I'm not taking it out of context. I'm not cutting this up. Tate cut this up and released it to his private paywalled Hustlers University fans. Now, it's been made public since, so I felt comfortable playing it. But this is stuff that Tate felt was important for his fans to hear his description of how he goes about human trafficking.
So let me finish responding. Okay. Your entire point that this is just a way of talking is ridiculous. It is absurd. He has listed exactly a step-by-step guide on how he lover boys girls into his sex trafficking business. He uses actual prostitution terms like bottom bitch to describe his relationship to some of the employees that he has.
More specifically, the person he described as his bottom bitch is like Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein. It's the person that grooms women into a position where they're willing to do this thing when they wouldn't otherwise be willing to. And Andrew Tate actually said you have to have a woman explain it to them because they're more comfortable with women. They're more comfortable taking ideas that women have to offer them, basically. They're distrustful of men, so get a woman in there who they can trust to convince them to do this so that you can exploit them financially. That's what he said.
He talks about bringing women into his company to work them as sex traffic models, and then he specifically talks about defrauding them using taxes to steal money from them. I think it's a little bit racist of you to say that that's just how people from Luton, England or whatever talk.
Oh, absolutely.
Or that's how they function. I don't believe that is the case.
Okay, so I'll answer your question. So no, again,
dude is suddenly like the most toxic SJW alive. Excusing like terrible behavior and all this other crazy. It's just nuts, dude. Suddenly his principles go right out the window. If this guy's defending Andrew Tate, I've never heard of him before, but if he's defending Tate, he's a far-right extremist nutcase. You don't defend Andrew Tate without being one of those. And suddenly he's like, it's SJW Central over here. Like, he's so concerned about political bias and institutional bias and just give me a fucking break, man.
But your point is actually doesn't make sense and it doesn't follow. It's non sequitur, and I'll explain why. The reason is because when you look at what he said online, again, you gave the example of bottom bitch and so on and so forth. That's basically slang. That's how people talk, and that's what you're not understanding.
No, it is not. You don't call somebody a bottom bitch unless they're a bottom bitch. It's a descriptive term that you use to refer to somebody very specific. You don't refer to if you're cheating on your main girlfriend or something, or you're married and you've got side chicks or whatever, you don't refer to your main woman as a bottom bitch. You refer to your bottom bitch as a bottom bitch if you are a pimp, and only if you are a pimp. This is a descriptive term that doesn't apply to anything else.
And in terms of, let's look at your example, which...
Again, if you don't know what a bottom bitch is, it's the girl that is basically your main girlfriend, quote-unquote girlfriend, your main human trafficking victim that convinces other women to be human trafficking victims with them, basically. The Ghislaine Maxwell for Jeffrey Epstein. She groomed girls to be more willing to do this thing or that thing or whatever else, to be human trafficking victims. That was Jeffrey Epstein's bottom bitch. And Andrew Tate had one also that filled the role of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Look at what he said online. Again, you gave the example of bottom bitch and so on and so forth. That's basically slang. That's how people talk, and that's what you're not understanding. In terms of, let's look at your example, which is completely ridiculous, because what you're saying is, guess what? He said this online, therefore he should be convicted based on it. Online,
I never said that.
Well, that's the inference you're making. Basically, online, you gave this example. You said he's trying to defraud them, because online, what he actually said was this. In that video, because I know the video you're referring to, he says, in the same video, he says, I'm going to take all the money. In the same video, he says, I'm going to give 50-50. In the same video, he says, I'm going to give 70-30, because, 20%, I'm going to tell us for tax purposes, but then I ain't going to pay that.
Right, and this is the video that we were watching in part one here. He said all of that in this. Now, we didn't actually get to that part. We only got like 5 minutes in, but yeah. He said he tells the girls that he's going to pay taxes. He has to pay taxes. So he's going to take 20% of their pay. But he's actually basically doing tax evasion by getting payments from the payment processors in Bitcoin, and he believes you don't have to pay taxes on Bitcoin, which is incorrect. But anyways, he's not paying taxes. He's evading it, and he's taking that 20% from the women despite that fact. That's the problem. That's what they're describing here. Remember, the criteria he has to meet to be a human trafficker is that he coerced them through force, fraud, or coercion. He has to have convinced them to do this thing through one of those three methods. He lied to them through fraud, which is exactly what he did, by the way. Told them that he was paying taxes for them, then took an additional 20% from them. Or he forced them by having like armed gunmen at the doors. He did that too, FYI. Whether they felt like they wanted to leave or not is irrelevant. Again, it doesn't matter if these women consented to it or not. That's part of the statute here. The consent of an individual who is a victim of trafficking does not represent a justifying ground. In Romania, it doesn't matter if they consented or not. It doesn't matter if they wanted to leave or not. They were being coerced through force and fraud, at the very least, those two.
In the same video, he says, I'm going to give 70-30, because, 20%, I'm going to tell us for tax purposes, but then I ain't going to pay the taxes, and hence why you're making the claim for fraud. The point is this. From the court documents, which I'm sure you've read, none of that is in there. In the court documents, what it actually says is...
Well, they haven't charged him yet, so yeah, maybe when they charge him, some of that stuff will be in there. It is relevant, and they do have enough evidence to charge him. They're just continuing to investigate.
Complete opposite. What it says is, and this is the worst one, so this is the worst woman. She says, I receive 50%, he receives 25%, so she receives double of what he receives. So... that is nothing got to do with, or has no links to the video.
Mm-hmm.
Again, their consent is irrelevant. They don't need any victims to come forward for them to charge Tate. What he did was against the law anyways, whether there are victims or not.
So and she doesn't mention anything about being defrauded of taxes because she's receiving the full 50, she's receiving 50%. So what you're claiming is, guess what? I don't care about what the court documents say. I don't care what the witness is saying. But guess what? In a video, he said this, and therefore he should be convicted based on the video. No,
that's correct. Again, I don't care what the witnesses said. It's irrelevant.
Only two explanations for the video because the court documents don't add up to what the video says. Either he was exaggerating and talking in this kind of slang language is what I'm trying to explain. So he was exaggerating, or...
Okay, so that's an interesting point. Was he exaggerating? Let's listen to the rest of his sentence here. Hang on.
Or it could be, which is a possibility, that it was so long ago that he did engage in those practices and no longer does. But what we know is, in this case...
Okay, so it doesn't matter if it was a long time ago or not. It wasn't a long time ago. But even if it was, he still did it. So that's not a valid defense to me. But what he's saying, he's kind of going with the Alex Jones defense here, which is... it's a character that he plays. It's a bit that he does. I mean, you can claim that it's a bit all you want, but there is a way of coming to the conclusion about whether or not this really is a bit. We find out if this is a bit or a character that he plays by going through his private messages and talking to the people in his life and looking at, conversations that he's had with others to see if this is a consistent thing, whether he's aware he's being recorded, or whether he's aware that those conversations are going to be read or not. And we have, actually, a bunch of recordings and conversations and text messages and voice and video messages and everything between him and one other person, just his victim, or his bottom bitch, or his brother. We have a ton of examples of conversations between just him and his brother where he's exactly the same. This is not a character. This is something that he has said and done since the very beginning with his brother. This is his personality. This is who he is. Always has been.
Which is a possibility that it was so long ago that he did engage in those practices and no longer does. But what we know is, in this case, what he's been charged for, what he's been held for, he hasn't been charged yet. So what he's been arrested for, no one says that.
No one says that. I'm not sure what he's talking about. They have most definitely accused him of human trafficking and all of that stuff. So I don't know what he's even saying right now.
Okay. So I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people that have only watched clips of Andrew Tate, which is fair. And I think that a lot of people say a lot of dumb things about him because they've only seen clips, which is also not fair. I think people shouldn't do that. But I think you're relying on me having only seen clips. So you're trying to pass this off as slang. When he used that phrase, bottom bitch, he wasn't passing it off as slang. He was very specifically detailing bringing girls that were in love with him over to dinner where he would introduce them to his youngest working, or one of his younger working models, a woman that he met at 16 that had been working with him for 5 years, is now 21, and how he would use her to mislead the relationship that they had so that she could get the girl, the new one that was brought in, into working as a cam girl.
Right. This is classic grooming. That is what is being described here. What Andrew Tate described that he was doing. He described grooming.
This is prostitute behavior. This is pimping behavior. This is exactly what it is. When he says bottom bitch here, he's not just using slang in a funny way to talk about a girl that's a friend of his that also works as her girlfriend. He's literally detailing step by step the process by how he would deceive and mislead, which are key components of sex trafficking, a new woman that he's brought in with another woman. He would mislead the extent of their relationship, and then he would use that to get her to go and be a cam girl. So that is not slang.
Right.
Wait, let me finish. That's not slang.
You just talk for ages, but okay.
No, this guy is talking his ear off, dude. Like, this guy won't shut up. He won't give anyone else an opportunity to talk. You know, this is how a debate works. You got to take turns here, right?
No, hold on. I didn't talk for ages. Yeah, I just been like half the time. I literally wrote down 2 points. I am going. I go nonstop. Okay, so it is not a slang thing. Secondly, you're bringing up this thing that the witness says they got 50%. That is not what the witness said. The witness said that originally there might have been an agreement where it was a 50-25-25 split, but the witness also said that they were randomly dinged for different charges that made it so that they didn't get that payout. For instance, if you didn't stream the full 12 hours, you might be fined like 1,000 to 4,000. Whatever the Roman or whatever the Romanian currency is. And that there were a lot of things where, because one of the claims was they had to work 12-hour shifts with a 5-minute break, and if they didn't work enough there, the witness also said that if they didn't post enough on OnlyFans, they didn't post enough TikToks, that they also were dinged their pay as well. So while on paper...
Dude, Destiny knows more about this than I do, and I watched this probably closer than almost anybody. I'm really impressed.
It might have been a 50-50 split. We have the issues where the witness is saying that they've lost some of it due to being fined. And we also have the fact that Andrew Tate on video has talked about how to defraud the women with their taxes. And we have another statement of him saying that he also oftentimes just bills in cryptocurrency, which is impossible to track. The women would have no idea if she's getting that or not.
Exactly. That was one of the ways in which he claimed he was evading taxes, basically, by doing everything in cryptocurrency, in Bitcoin. And yeah, and he's the one that handles all this, so nobody has any idea how much he's bringing in or how much he's paying them or any of that. He even said, if somebody starts asking questions about, like, taxes or whatever, he just prints some random tax forms off on the internet and then has them sign them. And they're like, what's this doing? And he says, it's just for taxes, just sign it. In reality, I mean, I'm quoting him right now. In reality, it's doing nothing. It's making me rich, bitch, is what he said. He was just lying to them. He'd just throw these forms away in the end. Like, it was all a lie, all of it. It was all a scam. He was scamming people out of money intentionally, taking advantage of them.
Right. So again, the statement that you've relayed is inaccurate. So the woman who said that...
No, it's perfectly accurate, actually. It's exactly what he said, quote, unquote.
50%, 25%, 25%. She didn't...
Is there a way we could pull this up on screen, the document that you guys are talking about? Do you know what it's called?
It's on some website, Spice something. It's in Romanian.
It's in Romanian.
Yeah.
You didn't bring a Romanian translator? Are you even trying? I thought this was a serious show. Jesus.
He's a douchebag sometimes.
So how did you read it then? The document you got it.
Someone translated it and then put it online, but I don't know whether
I learned Romanian.
You learned Romanian.
No, I have Romanian friends. You can also use Google Translate on this other thing too.
Yeah, you can go to like any website and Google Translate will just translate the whole website. It'll pop it up in the corner. It's not that hard.
I'll pull it down, okay? Because we could also pull up the video you guys were talking about too.
So in terms of what you're saying, that's not right, because the woman who claimed 50% never claimed that she ever got fined. I can say that without doubt. What she's claiming is other women were fined, and their percentage was much higher. So that's not right.
She wouldn't know. She would never.
No. So she's saying, wait. This is the problem. She's saying, I never got fined. Mm-hmm. I got 50% because you're trying to make it look like this, and this is what you're trying to portray. You're trying to portray this point. She got 50%, then she got fined, so therefore the percentage reduced. That's basically what you're trying to portray.
Can you explain?
But what she said was, no, I got 50%. She never got fined. Other women who allegedly got a bigger percentage were fined. That's what it was.
That's not true. But I'm just curious. How would she know she got 50%?
Sorry?
How would she know she got 50%?
Well, she said she got 50%.
I'm asking you how she would know.
Right. She could assume that she got 50%, but she couldn't possibly know for sure, right? Because Andrew Tate handled all of this stuff and told everybody that he lied about it. He twisted it around. He tricked them. He deceived them into believing that they were getting this or that or whatever else. He said that he was lying to these girls. How could they possibly know that they actually got paid fairly? They wouldn't.
How'd she know if she didn't?
I'm
sorry. Hang on. Let me step back here.
Percent.
Sorry?
How would she know she got 50%?
Well, she said she got 50%.
I'm asking you how she would know.
How would she know if she didn't?
That's irrelevant. The point is that Tate cannot be trusted. By his own admission, he cannot be trusted. He said that he lied to them. So the default position is distrust at this point. He has lost our goodwill.
I'm going by Andrew Tate's statements to figure out what was paid or not. Okay. And Andrew Tate himself has said that he would try to scam the models. But I'm curious because
no. This is the problem, you see, because again, another point is this. You know, when you said you used the bottom bitch method and, he used a woman to Laura and get another woman, there's no woman who's up until now, out of the victims whose information we have, no woman has claimed that occurred. So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they consent or not. I said this earlier. According to Romanian law, I have the statute pulled up right here, Article 211, under human trafficking. The consent of an individual who is a victim of trafficking does not represent a justifying ground. Doesn't matter if the women came out and said that they love him or that they weren't trafficked or anything. Doesn't matter. What matters is that he trafficked them.
So no woman has said that Andrew Tate took her for dinner, brought her bottom bitch, and then tried to lure her and convince her and then make her go abroad.
Okay, just because a woman has not described that scenario doesn't mean it didn't happen. Tate said that he did that. Other people said that that's how they did it.
No one has said that. They all have said that they all went abroad based on their own interaction with the Tates, and there was no other woman involved in trying to lure them.
Okay, that's just completely made up. But aside from that, do you know how one of the women originally, or how, a lot of this originally started, how these charges came to be in the first place? There's a woman who flew over to Romania because Tate convinced her that she was special or whatever. She kind of fell in love with him, if you will. So she flies over to see him in Romania, and he took her passport. He did this to all of his girls, took their passports, took anything that they could, any documentation that they needed to even exit the country or travel around. He took it, and he held it. That's coercion, including their cell phones. Took their cell phones. A girl finally managed to sneak a phone call to a friend in the United States and tell him that she's being held against her will here. The friend called the U.S. Embassy in Romania, told them what was going on. The embassy investigated, busted in, and found 6 girls locked in the basement. Again, with no passports or no documentation at all that they would need to travel around the EU or anywhere else. He held them against their will. Now, you can twist that around any way you want, but that's just the fact of the situation.
How many, do you know how many people right now are filed as injured persons, I think, for the case? Well,
yes.
It's 8, right?
7.
So are you...
Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if these people are complaining. Doesn't matter if they had their consent or any of it. What matters is that there was human trafficking taking place. So it used to be that this boss was actually really tough. But ever since I started doing the no race gold Chocobo thing, I always have Knights of the Round by this point. You're not supposed to be able to get a gold Chocobo before you get Cloud back. So you run around with Tifa as your main character for like a short time, and then Sid as a short time. It just probably a total of 15 minutes in game is when that happens. But then you get Cloud back, and then you can do the racing, the Chocobo racing and stuff. You cannot race until you get Cloud. So you're not supposed to be able to race or get the Chocobo until you get Cloud back. But since I do a no race method, I get the Chocobo with Tifa. Now, Tifa and Sid are not supposed to have animations of riding the Chocobo because you're not supposed to have it yet. But they do. They really built this game out. It was really impressive. So anyways, yeah, I got Knights of the Round, and that basically just destroys this boss here. So, and then I can use Mime from Yuffie over and over and over again. This is a super long animation. Anyway, let's keep listening.
You sure? I thought it was 6, and then they added 2 more.
It was 6, they've added 1 more.
Okay, so it's either 7 or 8. How many women worked with him?
What do you mean?
Didn't he say at one point that he had up to 75 women working at one time?
He did, and actually I think he may have said 150. I don't know for sure.
That's what the website says. But
okay.
Again, this is the problem. So he did say that. One can assume...
Look, do you trust his word or not? This guy wants it both ways. Either you trust his word or you don't.
You're right. He did say that. I'm not going to deny that. He said that basically I had 75 women working for me and that we could get rich together. He did say that.
Okay.
In terms of what the court information says, it doesn't say anything related to that. In terms of the BBC documentary, they try and portray the fact that it's actually a very small operation and there was hardly any women.
Has the prosecution leaked every piece of evidence that they have?
Sorry?
Has the prosecution leaked all of the evidence that they had?
No, they haven't. So what they've leaked, no, they haven't. So what they've leaked is this. So what we know about, and then I'll explain to you what they've leaked. So what we have is the witness statement of the women, right? We have the psych report. Do you think the psych report's acceptable?
I do, yeah.
You do? Why?
I'm not sure what the psych report is, what they're referring to here. Is it a psych report of the women that accused Tate of something? I don't know. We'll find out in a second, I guess.
Do you think it's acceptable?
It was done by a professional. What else can I go by?
So you think it's acceptable that a psych report was done on the US Moldovan woman, and then based on that psych report, the psychologist made a judgment that all the other women are brainwashed. So Jasmine and Beatrice, she never saw them. She never met them. She never did a psychiatric report on them. And just based on them girls' words, she decided that they were brainwashed. Do you think that's how? Do you think that's acceptable?
I don't know the extent to which you can guess the other one. Why have we moved on to the psych report? Why did we jump?
No, because you asked for the evidence. That was the second evidence.
Well, no, I was asking. You seem to be very confidently stating that.
See, this is another example of Destiny being really good at debating, better than the average person. He's not letting him get away with this. He's pulling him right back to the subject. You know, it's easy to get derailed and confused and move on to something else when you have somebody moving from subject to subject like this. But he's not allowing him to jump to another subject.
The presence of the bottom bitch, that hasn't been mentioned by any other woman or any other person.
That's right.
But how do we know the prosecution isn't planning on bringing that up at trial?
Well, we only base on things on what information we have right now. The information we have right now is we know there's a witness statement, we know there's a psych report, we have the 2 rulings that were leaked, and we also have what else? We have some of the WhatsApps that were leaked. I can't use.
You're telling me I can't use any statement that Andrew Tate has made in any of his videos or websites. That's not fair game for me to use.
Look,
that's basically what he's saying. Yes.
You have to accept. Look, there could be a snap. I can take. Look, I was even gonna do a low below.
God, he's just going in circles now.
And I actually took a snippet from your video where you said me and Lena are racist. But
what?
Guess what? That was out of context.
It's super uncommon for Destiny to accuse people of being racist because, I mean, not previously. He used to be super progressive, but again, he's moved really far right at this point, and I don't know. Like, he still votes Democrat. He's still, advocates for, like, voting for Joe Biden and other people on the left, but politically, he's moved really far right because he said some shit, stuck his foot in his mouth, and got criticized for it. And instead of just taking the L and saying, you know what, I'm sorry, you're right, guys, he doubled down and dropped all of his friends that were on the left and picked up friends that agreed with the shit that he said originally, which, okay, that's a choice, I suppose. I don't understand the context because I wasn't here to see the previous stuff, but okay. I have to hit that red submarine with these things and knock it out, basically. Come on, one more, I think. There it is. Okay, that was easy. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Was a joke you were making because you were being humorous, and there was context because you were having a joke with like somebody who was accusing you.
Sure,
of it.
but what is
my point? The point I'm trying to make is that would be unacceptable for me to use to then say you're racist. So in reality, what'll happen is this is what I think. This is in the scenario where I think it should be used and when it shouldn't be used. So the scenario where a video evidence should be used is, let's say for example, someone says I killed Michael, and then you see Michael dead. You'd be like, okay, he said I've killed Michael online and Michael's dead. But if he says I've killed Michael, but then like Tony's dead, that doesn't mean that just because he said he's going to murder someone that he's murdered Tony. So the issue is this: whenever you're going to use,
sure, I suppose I can agree with that. I don't see what that has to do with this situation though at all.
Something online, the specific usage has to be used. So when you're giving the example of the bottom bitch, there needs to be evidence that actually happened, and there's no evidence that happened.
That we've been presented with.
Yeah, that we've been presented with. But we've been presented with significant. So I've done a significant amount of research on the Moldovan woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. I've done a significant amount of research on the US woman. There's nothing about a bottom bitch. Jasmine and Beatrice, the same thing. This UK, this woman number 7, the BBC did. She literally says she actually explains how she went abroad, and it was based on her own decision, her interaction with Andrew.
Yeah, all of these things can be based on their own decisions. It doesn't matter if they have the consent of these people or not. It doesn't have to be human trafficking. I'm sorry, it doesn't have to. It can still be human trafficking whether there is consent or not.
Okay, so we've got 5 women. So yeah, there is a small possibility that the other 2 women could say that happened. But right now, based on these 5 women, no.
Okay, so when you compare the joke about me making a small racist comment saying,
you didn't make a racist comment. No, you
saying
didn't.
That, let's say even if I did, right? The way that you would evaluate the truthfulness of that is you go, well, let's look at his entire body of work.
I accept.
You would say what we do.
Exactly.
So if somebody's making comments about Andrew Tate, then we would look at his entire body of work. So if we look at what Andrew Tate's business is, or at least what he's claimed it is he's working with over 70 women, and he claims most of them are his girlfriends, are loyal to him. A lot of them are Eastern European. He has talked about defrauding them on their taxes. He's talked about using a bottom bitch to rope some of them into his business. He's talked about how his brother has talked about how he doesn't let any of them read any of their Instagram messages. He's talked about how he doesn't let any of them leave. There's been statements leaked by some of the victims.
He says that he keeps their cell phones and he took their passports. Well, okay, let me rephrase. He says that he keeps their cell phones. He will not allow them access to the cell phones, specifically because if they have access to their cell phones and they have access to the client list, and if they have the access to the client list, they have the option of leaving him. If he has their cell phones, then he has leverage over them, basically. Now, he didn't say, I don't know if he said he keeps their passports or not. I don't remember, but he does keep their passports. That was another piece of evidence that was obtained.
Saying that they weren't allowed to leave the premises without a bodyguard or without one of the 2 women going along with them. That when we look at all of this, I don't think it's fair to say that we're just taking a single clip or we're just taking one comment and we're trying to make the claim like, oh, Andrew Tate is this horrible person. His entire model of camming, from his brother talking about how they would just scam men. Here you go.
Yeah, they would talk about scamming men constantly. They said that they would pretend to be the girl talking to the men when in reality it was just Andrew Tate on the other end talking to the men, pretending to be the girl. Just disgusting levels of stuff, dude. Seriously, disgusting stuff.
I gave you 2.
Oh, that's kind of.
I gave you 2.
Yeah,
There's a pen right next to Dustin.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, we're accommodating here.
Yeah, accommodating. Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate's entire lives have been them openly talking about how they are scammers and about how they basically acquire women to use for their businesses in ways that to any sane person is going to sound like sex trafficking, where you're getting women that are loyal and faithful to you, that you're going to get to do camming, and in multiple statements they've said like, oh, and you know what, they're my property and I get all of the money, and then in other statements, Andrew has detailed how he defrauds them on their taxes. I don't see how any sane person does look at this and go like, oh, you know, this kind of looks like sex trafficking. It really does fit the bill completely.
Exactly. There is no sane person who could look at this and not call it exactly what it is. This guy is just covering for him Why is he covering for Andrew Tate? You got me. I don't know why he cares enough to straight up lie for Tate. Like he's deceiving everybody listening right now, seemingly intentionally.
So, okay, so basically 2 points. The fallacy of your position is this, and I'll get to the fallacy in a second. First things first, I agree with you. You should take a person's full body of information. And when you take Andrew Tate's full body, you've seen it online. There's so many of his fans have produced videos demonstrating the complete opposite. No, you shouldn't fraud the women. No, you should look after them. You should take care of them. You should respect them, so on and so forth. So you do have content that is equally on the same level as the content that you use to attack Tate. And that's my point. When you use the whole body, there is a huge level of body of information out there that shows both the positivity of what he's doing and the negativity of these statements. That's the first point. In terms of the second point, again, this is the problem you're doing, because I know you have to do it because you know the case doesn't line up with your point.
I don't know what he means by that. The case absolutely like Andrew Tate admitted to human trafficking. Like, what else do we need?
What we're basically doing is separating online content of what he's saying and saying, I don't care about what's happening in the case, that he should be convicted based on that. But guess what? I'm saying what he's saying online has no correlation with what he's done. So therefore, you can't use that as evidence to then say he should be convicted. What you should be doing, or what you can do, and I would find that acceptable, is if he's actually got a specific statement. So let's say the US woman says, look, he did X to me, specifically X, not the whole thing and trying to make it look like human trafficking. And then you went and found he did X in the video, then you could be like, he did it, but that's not what's happening. You're basically saying, he did this on the video, I do not care what the evidence states, I'm going to just say that he's guilty. So what you're...
No, there's a ton of evidence against him. I don't care about CCTV footage. This guy seems hyper-focused on the evidence that the girls, didn't feel coerced or whatever. It doesn't matter if the girls felt coerced. It doesn't matter if they consented to this. It's irrelevant. That's the point. This guy wants to point out that the girls are agreeable, like they consented to this whole thing. I don't care. It's human trafficking whether they consented or not.
Basically saying is, guess what? I'm going to trial him, or I'm going to convict him based solely on social media content, irrespective of what the real life content is. And that's a problematic because, like I said,
Okay, he's just saying this blindly. Like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't what's happening. It's complete garbage.
Not understanding the point of, and I tried to explain to you from a thinking point of view, and you thought it was a race issue, but you're not understanding the issue of this. People talk in humor. People don't always talk in literalism.
See, this is another line of defense. Like I said earlier, this is the Alex Jones defense. This is a character I play. This is a bit I do. It's a joke. This isn't real. This isn't actually how I act. And that's interesting. It's an interesting claim. But we have ways of going about determining if that's true or not. Look at private communications between various different people. We can determine if this really is who you are and what you believe or not. And we do that by looking at private communications. Luckily for us, the court has released some private communications, some emails between him and his brother. We have evidence to show that he, in fact, is like this in real life. This really is him. This is not a character he's playing. This isn't a bit he's doing. This is Andrew Tate. So that just throws that right out the window.
People exaggerate. People try and make their business look a lot better than they did. There's a number of reasons for that, but that's basically what happens. So in reality, when you're saying this, we need to look at it from a contextual point of view. So that's the first point. So now what you need to do is give me, if you want something as evidence, give me something in the documents, something that they've done that you say, yeah, they should be convicted. Because guess what? Right now, the judge doesn't agree with you because the judge said there's reasonable suspicion, but there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. So that's why the prosecutor, for the last 9 months, as well as these 2 months, is looking for the evidence. Because if he had
they have plenty of evidence. They're looking for more evidence. Distinct difference to be had there. They want to build a full and complete case. There's already more than enough evidence to convict him just of human trafficking, put him away for 15 years, just based off of what is public right now. And they have more shit that's not public currently. every time when I was younger, when I would get here to the Sunken Galnica is what this is called, when you exit, sometimes Emerald Weapon, the ultimate boss of the entire game, is waiting for you out there, and it really freaks me out. Like, it used to freak me out. Last time I played this on stream, I jumped like you wouldn't believe. There's a short of it out there somewhere. But let's see if the... Nope, it's not there. Okay, nice. I don't have to deal with him. He's a little bastard anyway. All right, let's keep listening.
The evidence to convict them or prosecute them even before that, he would have used it. But he knows that this social media content that you're talking about, that doesn't match up with what the real life evidence and claims of the women are.
Oh, it absolutely does. And again, they don't need any women. The number of women that are out there accusing or whatever, totally irrelevant. All of the women could come back and say, I lied about all of it, and it wouldn't matter. All the evidence that they have right now is enough to convict him for 15 years for human trafficking. So, yeah, the women are irrelevant here. I mean, they help the case, certainly. They make it stronger, but they really don't need the women at all.
So what you are saying is, guess what? I don't care what the judge says. It doesn't matter that the judge says that there's not enough evidence to prosecute and convict. That's not good enough for me. I'm going to look at social media content, and he's guilty.
Okay, so I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning of the show. Only one of us here seems interested in having the process follow itself completely, and that's me. I said that whatever they find, I think that if they find enough to bring charges, then they should have a trial. And if they do well on their trial, the prosecution, then he should get convicted. That's how it should work. It might be the case that after the prosecution digs further, that they don't find enough, and Andrew Tate and Tristan and the other two women end up walking. That could be the case. And if that is the case, then that's fine. I'm not here.
I seriously, deeply doubt that's going to happen. There's absolutely no way in hell that that's going to be the case. Unless there's some kind of corruption in the Romanian court system. There's already more than enough evidence to prove that Tate has done human trafficking. In his own words, he's done it.
Here saying that he should be convicted. You keep saying that he should be convicted. I don't believe that he should be convicted based on what he said in his social media posts.
Thanks,
I think that okay, cool. But yeah. I think that it's okay.
So what do we disagree on?
Hold on.
What do we disagree on?
Hold on. Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The first thing you said is look at his full body of work. Okay. Yeah. His full body of work is that he treats women like property. When he has some TikTok.
By his own description, he calls them assets in this video we watched earlier.
Videos that say things like you should look after women and respect them and take care of them. He's taking care of them as a pimp takes care of his prostitutes. And he's reiterated that multiple times, that the women belong to him, that they're not allowed to go out without him. They can't go to the club without him. They can't do these things without him. That they stay home all the time and they cook and they clean. And hold on, let me respond to his things, please. And then you can say whatever you want, okay? Yeah. That he's multiple times stated this. And his brother Tristan has stated the same.
Absolutely. I have a ton of clips of this. He's absolutely correct on this point. Here's a good example right here. Listen to this one. This is from Christmas Day 2022.
Men have been scared away from the idea of marriage, and that's a lot of that is the fault of this new bullshit law and this new feminism and this new crap. They don't give men any tactical advantage. And I'm talking about small things. A man's not even allowed to be a man in his own house. You know, in England, you will get accused of emotional abuse. I can marry a woman, not lay a hand on her. I can just raise my voice at her. That's emotional abuse. I can raise my voice at her because she's going out drinking with dudes.
Yeah, you're not supposed to scream at somebody or throw things or abuse people emotionally. Absolutely, that's correct. He doesn't seem to think that there's anything wrong with emotional abuse. He thinks that you should be able to emotionally abuse people, seemingly. Right?
You can go out drinking 6 nights a week with men, and I can say, what the fuck, you're my wife, sit down.
No, you can say, you're my wife, I guess we're splitting up now. That's an option. Telling her what to do should not be one of your go-to moves.
She can call the cops, call me emotionally abusive. I get arrested now. Now there's a court case against me. I have to go to court and defend myself.
Wow, what a victim, huh? He has to go to court if he abuses somebody. Wow, that's so messed up, huh?
She'll divorce me, take my house. I have to sell my car because she's drinking vodka with fucking God knows who.
But you know...
See, just his whole mindset is ass backwards, like everything about it.
It's insanity.
Anyway, yeah, that's just one example. Like, I have a billion clips from this guy.
Is cheating morally correct?
Yes.
Depends.
Yes.
How
so
can you say that? Are you joking?
Okay with your woman cheating on you then?
Absolutely not. That's haram.
No, because
it's around when she cheats on you, but you can cheat on her.
There has not been in the history of humanity across any.
Yeah, so then he tries to justify his position. It's just absurd. Absurd on every level. Everything about the guy is absurd.
Same thing as well, that they're not allowed to look at their Instagram DMs, that he controls all of their social media accounts. He may probably control their income as well. I would imagine that would extend to that. So when you say that there's a counterbalance, well, on one end, he's treating women like property, but on the other end...
My guess is this guy is probably going to focus in on what Destiny just said, which is, I would imagine that it extends to that.
And he's saying that respect them because you need to own them as sex workers, essentially, or own them as house slaves. I don't think that that's a good counterbalance. You bring up this point again and again that he should be convicted based on social media things. I have not said that he should be convicted. What I'm saying is that, and what you agreed to, is that the prosecution hasn't given us every single piece of evidence. If Andrew Tate has said, I defraud people on their taxes, I don't think that he should be convicted for it. I think that would be a good point for the prosecution to say, okay, well, let's start subpoenaing records and let's see what have these girls actually been paid. They should have bank accounts. There should be income statements from his camming websites, and then the prosecution can look and they could go, this woman earned, 50,000 Romanian dollars, and she was paid 25,000 Romanian dollars. Well, everything here is probably good, and they move on. But maybe she earned $50,000, and for some reason she's only getting paid 500 Romanian dollars. Then that would be probably something you would bring in court and say, hey, look, this is part of the charges we're bringing against you. You are clearly defrauding these women. I don't know what the extent of that investigation is going to be, because right now I don't have any insight into what the prosecution has besides what they've leaked to the public or presented to the judge to maintain that the Tates remain in prison until they finish their investigation. The people talking humor and all of this, again, I'm going by full-length videos that I've watched of Andrew and Tristan Tate explaining how they work with women and explaining their business. I'm not going by little quips. I'm not going by small clips. I'm not going by jokes. I'm just listening to how they describe the process of what they do. And if you listen to it, it sounds indistinguishable from pimping.
It is pimping. They call themselves pimps. 100%.
Would you agree that the CCTV footage should be included in the case?
I don't know what the particular. I don't think
I
that
just think
every.
It's weird. Like, why would
It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The CCTV footage is irrelevant because consent is not a necessary component of human trafficking. It doesn't matter if the girl's consented to being human trafficked or not. So no, don't include the CCTV footage because it doesn't matter at all.
Wouldn't they have that in there?
Well, I don't know what evidence they need to have on both sides because they don't need every single piece of evidence.
Well,
right?
I'm just thinking, like, if you're gonna go off of, because you guys know a lot more about this than I do, but basically, like, they.
As a woman, she believes that she is inferior to men. She believes that women should be subservient and quiet and sit in the kitchen and obey men and stuff, like all the same shit that Tate says. It's insane.
That Andrew and Tristan were like running this operation. Wouldn't CCTV footage be the perfect thing to see?
No, it wouldn't. It's irrelevant.
Like the problem is, I don't know.
Like the cops busted in after a girl, a girl flies over from the United States because Andrew Tate tells her that he's in love with her and he wants to be with her and all this other garbage, right? He flies her over to Romania. She shows up at this mansion. He coerces her into doing this camming stuff, takes her passport away, takes her cell phone, takes her everything away from her, right? She gets a call out to a friend in the United States. Tells him that she's being held there and she wants to leave and she has no way out, no options to leave. The friend calls the U.S. Embassy in Romania, tells them that this is happening. The U.S. Embassy sends people over to see what's happening. They bust in. They find like 6 girls in the basement. All of them missing their passports, all of them locked away in this area that they did not want to be in. Even if they did want to be there, it doesn't matter. Because consent is not a necessary part, but at least one of them didn't want to be there, or she wouldn't have called her friend in America, right? That's what happened. This is fucking real, okay? He was a full-blown human trafficker using the lover boy method. Now, these people can try to weasel their way out of that for him all they want, but that's what it is.
of the CCTV footage is dispositive, right? It might be the case that there are videos of them partying inside, but it might be the case that leaving the compound is actually incredibly difficult. That you're not, that once you step outside, you get in trouble. Also, according to Romanian criminal law, statements from victims can't get rid of sex trafficking. Like a victim can't consent to that. So even if a victim,
Right. As I said earlier, consent is not a necessary component to this.
says, oh, well, you know, this was all fine and it was okay, if text message logs are leaked where he's saying like, oh, I want to marry you, blah, 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 and then she comes down and she starts working for him and she's not even getting paid her fair cut, it doesn't matter if she comes out on social media and says, oh, no, like, we're cool, everything's fine, especially if they're still working in the industry. Those statements explicitly called out in Romanian law are not used to clear the charges of sex trafficking. They're irrelevant.
Okay, so let me go through your point.
Dude, we are 45 minutes into this debate, and this is the very first time that he mentioned that. I feel like that should have been like at the forefront of this conversation, that it's completely irrelevant. Consent does not matter.
Might be a while. Right, so first things first, in terms of the property point, right? So again, this is the issue where what happened was Andrew Tate has explained this in long form, and he did explain that, look, the way I see it is in a traditional religious view. So what happens is in the Abrahamic religions, you have a scenario where the man gives the father gives the woman away. There is a dowry where you give a payment to the father and then it passes over. Now, you may agree.
So now he's saying, okay, sure, there was some human trafficking where they were coerced and forced to stay in this area and do what he said. But that's just, you know, how Abrahamic religions do things. No, it's not. That is, in fact, not how Abrahamic religions do things. They do not, by default, human traffic people, okay? That's completely made up.
Or disagree with that, but that's the perspective. Now, I understand in this liberal West.
Dude, why is this guy even a tater tot, honestly? How can he possibly defend some of this stuff? It's grotesque.
Western world, why that would be a problem, and because in liberal Western ideology, in reality, it's the man who is the property of the woman. Because what happens is in this. Yeah, I'm about to explain to you, Destiny. So, because in this world, in this Western liberal ideology, you have a scenario where basically the man, when he marries the woman, he makes a contract. And the contract is this, that he promised to be monogamous. But the woman doesn't make the same agreement. Because what happens is if the man cheats on the woman, he loses 50% of everything.
This is a common claim from Andrew Tate. It's complete garbage. This is not even actually true. The woman does not take 50% of all of his assets. What happens is if they get divorced, their assets that they made when they were together are split 50-50, commonly. So I owned my YouTube channel before I got married, and a lot of the growth that happened before we were married. That means my wife would not be entitled to half of my assets or YouTube channel if we split up, if we got divorced. This is just completely made up. Like, everything about this is a misrepresentation of the situation. It works exactly the same way with women. If women get rich while in the marriage, the man, if he chooses to divorce her, takes half of the stuff that were considered communal assets. So, yeah, it's just nonsense. It's a misrepresentation of the facts. Now, that being said, in the United States specifically, women tend to be favored in court cases and things like that, and I'm not really happy with that. I think it should be a little bit more fair than that. In fact, it should be a lot more fair, honestly. But, you know, like child's custody cases, for example, should be a lot more fair than it is. And people view this as a men's rights issue. It's not. This is a feminist issue. Women shouldn't be expected to be the caretakers all the time. By giving custody of children to women, they are reaffirming the idea that women are the primary caretakers. Men should be viewed as caretakers as well, and should have a fair shot at having 50-50 custody. So, anyways, the point is, this is just a complete misrepresentation of everything, but okay.
If she leaves him. If the woman cheats on the man, he has to either accept it, or he has to basically divorce her, and then he loses 50% of everything.
Everything that he earned while he was in the marriage, unless there's a prenup. Prenups are perfectly acceptable. You can sign a prenup or honestly a postnup, and it works the other way around too. The assumption that they're building off of here is that women are worth nothing and incapable of earning their own money. Men know how to earn money and are never the ones that join into a relationship and the other person gets rich or whatever. Like, the framing that they're building is propagandistic nonsense, all of it.
So so I understand why that would be a problem, because in Western liberalism, the man is the property of the woman. In terms of you said I don't think, but it doesn't matter what you think about this issue. It's about what's actually happened. And in terms of the issue, you've got a scenario where there's not enough evidence to prosecute or convict. That's what the judge said. Because what you're trying to say is, guess what? There may be a plethora of evidence, but they've not given it to us. So, guys, there is enough of evidence to prosecute, but it's just hidden away. But that's not. No,
there is enough evidence to prosecute right now. There is more than enough evidence, first of all. And second, they have to present the evidence within 180 days, right? And they can continue to extend the detention for up to 180 days, no longer. I'm perfectly okay with that in Tate's case. Now, I'm not really sure that I'm okay with that in everyone else's case. Maybe they should prosecute or let him go, one or the other. But in Tate's case, I'm comfortable with what's happening right now. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.